Hi, and welcome to the second video in the series on using web services in AL. I'm Eric, and in the first episode we looked on how to actually create the innermost function of talking to a web service using the HTTP client. Go watch that, and this is the second, so we're picking right up where the first video left, and where we're picking up is looking at the API again. So this is the API that we're implementing, the address validation API from US Postal Service. And we wrote this function here called web service in the first episode. Actually, let's like clean out a couple of empty lines, and it looks fine. So we need to figure out how to use this, and let's add a function more to our code unit. Let's create a function called verify customer address. So this clearly takes a customer as a parameter. And well, we know that we need to call our web service. So call web service. We know that the API, if we go back and look, the API is called verify. So we can do that. Verify, that's 50% of the work. And then we need to pass an XML document. Okay, so let's create one of those. XML document. We can pass that. Perhaps we should not call it XML, so let's call it parameters. We know that we are getting an XML document back, so let's call that result. That's pretty good, but we probably need to actually put something into that one. And the way we do this is that we say parameters equal XML document. Again, we talked a bit about this in the first video. So a new thing in Business Central is that types can have static methods. So in this case, XML document has a create function. So we can create a new XML document this way. Let's take a look at the XML that we actually need to create. We can grab this one. Here's an example. It's just an address, so we might look and see there's also firm name, so the company name. So let's grab this, and we can just put it in the code here for us to watch. Oh, lots of white spaces. Now let's get rid of those. Oops, not that one, but this one. And what do we have here? We have address validate request. That's our root, and then inside that we have some fields. One of them is address, and address has not a field. So the structure looks more or less like that. So we created parameters. So parameters will have to be the XML document. So this will be the actual document. So we need to put some elements in it. And the easiest way of doing that is to start from the inner part. So we can create one called address and say that's an XML element. So address is equal an XML element dot create, and it's called address. So we call it address. And it has an ID equals 0. So let's just do that. So address dot attributes dot set ID, and has to have a 0. There we go. So we have set that, and then we need to add some fields inside it. And the way I usually do this is I create a small helper function. Again, local procedure. So procedure, add field, name, oops, let's do this proper, name text, value text. In this case, it's all text, so we're good. And this function should simply return an XML element. So we probably need an element in here somehow. So element equal XML element dot create, and it has to have the name, and then we add our value as a child to this element. That will be just a value inside the tag, and we exit the element. So a nice little function to create a field. So we can go up here and say address dot add, and then we'll add field, and we need to add a field called address1, and that will be the customer. Also, we wanted to add, I forgot that one, add field firm name, customer dot name, and there are two address. The problem is that the editor is not as bright as the search bar. So we want to add two address fields. Next thing we want to add is the city. So add field, oops, city dot customer dot city, address dot add. Wow. Just got a new computer, and I usually always disable the caps lock, and I haven't got around to do that yet on this one. So I do crazy caps lock. So state on the customer, there is no state field. So the state is hidden in a field called county, not country, but county. And then we need to add the zip5 and do the customer dot postcode. So US postcode is typically in this form. So right now we're not pretending we have that, and we're not going to do crazy splitting. So we're not just pretending that we'll have the 5 in here. That would be a nice way of fixing this one up, but let's wait with that until the fixing up video, if that's ever going to happen. Then there were a zip4, and we're just going to leave that blank right now because we're not doing the fixing up. We could split and fix as a to-do. So now we have the address all built up. Then we need the outer layer. So right now we have address, we need to put that into address validate request. So AVR address validate request, that's also an element. So let's do AVR equal XML element dot create, and we need to, I'm just going to copy it down here because you've seen my typing skills. There we go. So AVR dot add, and then we're adding the address to that one. Bam. How's that? So the only thing we need now is to grab our XML called parameters, and then we're gonna add the AVR to that one. And let's get rid of the XML here. We can always look at the web page if we need to see it again. So what we have now is that we created the address, added all the fields. We are missing one thing though. Let me actually undo, because we're missing the user ID from this one. So here we need to use the avr.attributes.set, and the field is called user ID, all caps. And we have that in our setup, but we have not created a setup variable. So let's create a setup variable. Record US Postal Service setup. And then I'm just gonna grab this one down here. So now I'm kind of repeating stuff within the same code unit, and you could say, but you can create the setup record as a global variable inside the code unit. And to that I'm saying no. If I can avoid it, I'm never creating global variables. I like my procedures to be self-contained, so you can copy them, you can grab them, and there's no context that they need to be part of in order to work. They just work with the interface described. So with that, we can go down here and say setup.user ID. So now I think we have done everything that's required of this XML, and we got the result. Let's create a result txt text, just because now I've written so much code and I haven't tried this thing in yet. So let's actually do result dot write to result.txt, and then message our result.txt. How about that? So the only thing we need now is a way to call this function. So on the page extension on the customer list, I will add an action. Area at first. We want to be first in processing. And we want to add an action called verify. What's that? Caption equal verify address, and let's give it an image. There's probably something with addresses. That's perfect. An application area, we'll always need that. And then how about a trigger on action? We need our management code unit, US Postal Service Management, and in that one we have just one public function because everything else is created as local verify address. And now we're on the customer list, so rec is customer. Let's compile this. Okay, big moment of truth, F5. Let's try it out. So a lot of code, and this is the first time we run it. 2 videos in. And I'm still Eric, so here we go, sign in. We're getting to the customer list, and just a moment, there we go. So I actually cheated a bit, and because I'm in my sandbox here happens to be a Canadian one with Canadian address. So I created a new customer, my old friends down in Florida, TAB US. And I think the address is more or less correct, but the city is not called Winter Parking. That would be strange. So with that, let's try and see what happens. Action, verify address. Uh-oh, the debugger is blinking. Ah, remember our nice error about the missing setup. Okay. Let's go into the US Postal Service setup. But we can't because we forgot to do one thing. And now all the comments under the last video is probably saying, hey Eric, you forgot to add a usage category to your setup page and an application area, because so we did that now. Here we go. Let's see if we can get into the setup this time. And while one tab is loading, we can close the other ones out. US Postal Service setup. There we go. And we got a new one. So what about that URL? Let's see if we can sort of grabbing it here. paste it in here. We're just gonna remove the spaces added while pasting from this one. And I registered earlier at the US Postal Service website. So one thing we're actually missing, let me actually just stop this one and do this again. So on this page, we can say that user ID extended data type is masked. Let's get into the US Postal Service setup again, and this time when we're pasting something in this one, hey, we're just getting the little dots, and then because we never completed that page, so we need to put the URL in again. We can do that very quickly. We're out those two, and I think we're good. So moment of truth. Let's select this one. Action, verify address, and bam, we got an XML back. And let's take a look at this for a second. Address validate response. So hey, we got a response. Company name is correct. They actually split the address into 2 lines, so the suite is 1 and the address is 2. And it's no longer Winter Parking, it's just Winter Park, and we got the 4-zip and the zip 4 and zip 5 things. So this looks very good. So before we end this video, let me just go back into Visual Studio Code and recap what we did. We did create some setup pages, well, it's mostly in the first video. We added in an action on the customer list, but in reality, what we mostly did was we added a new function to our code unit, verify customer address. This function used the XML document and the XML element data types to create the request element that we need. So we build up the address validation request, and added that together as an XML document and send it into the web service. So with that, I will end video number 2, and in number 3 we will basically take this and make it a usable extension. We will create a UI surrounding this is the address now, and this is the suggested address, and how to handle the user experience of this. So we started first video very deep. Now we used it, and the third video we're gonna make it pretty and usable. So until next time, follow me on Twitter, subscribe to the YouTube channel, put your comments down below if you think there's something I should have done different, or you like what I do, or have suggestions for other videos, and anything, let me know. And until next time, have a wonderful day.